Television completes the cycle of human sensorium. With the omnipresent ear and the moving eye, we have abolished writing, the specialized acoustic visual metaphor that established the dynamics of Western civilization. In television, there occurs an extension of the sense of active exploratory touch, which involves all of the senses simultaneously rather than that of sight alone. You have to be with it. But in all electronic phenomenon, the visual is only one component in a complex interplay, since in the age of information, most transactions are managed electrically. The electric technology is meant for Western man a considerable drop in the visual component, in his experience, and a corresponding increase in the activity of his other senses. Television demands participation and involvement in depth of the whole being. It will not work as a background. It engages you. Perhaps this is why so many people feel that their identity has been threatened. This charge of the light brigade, puns, has heightened our general awareness to the shape and meaning of lives and events to a level of a new extreme sensitivity. It was the funeral of President Kennedy that most strongly proved the power of television to invest an occasion with the character of corporate participation. It involves an entire population in a ritual process. By comparison, press, movies, and radio are mere packaging devices for consumers. In television, images are projected at you. You are the screen. The images wrap around you. You are the vanishing point. This creates a sort of inwardness, a sort of reverse perspective, which has much in common with Oriental art. The television generation is a grim bunch. It is much more serious than the children of any other period when they were frivolous, more whimsical. The television child is more earnest, more dedicated. Most often, the few seconds sandwiched between the hours of viewing, the commercials, reflect a truer understanding of the medium. There's simply no time for a narrative form borrowed from earlier print technology. The storyline must be abandoned. Up until very recently, television commercials were regarded simply as a bastard form of vulgar folk art. They are influencing contemporary literature. In Cold Blood, for instance, the main cause for disappointment and the criticism of television is the failure on the part of its critics to view it as a totally new technology, which demands different sensory responses. These critics insist on regarding television as merely a degraded form of print technology. Critics of television have failed to realize that the motion pictures they are lionizing, The Knack, Hard Day's Night, What's New Pussycat, would prove unacceptable as mass audience films if the audience had not been preconditioned by television commercials to accept abrupt zooms, elliptical editing, no storylines, and flash cuts. And as a comic who says, when you think of television's awful power to educate, aren't you glad that it doesn't? Oh, hello there. I didn't see you guys come in. Welcome to Bitcoin Talk Show. It's just reading a little bit of Marshall McLuhan's The Medium is the Massage. Good stuff about television and participation and the image. We're also joined by J.W. Weatherman. Do you want to say hello, J.W.?
Hey, what's up, gentlemen? I'm sure that there's probably at least two ladies in the audience. So, what's up, ladies?
Yes, very unlikely, but give us a thumbs up down below, no matter what gender you are. And it was an interesting story about television and the moving power of the image and our ability to share one image like we used to do back in the old days. Everyone would watch the same 4 television channels. We talked yesterday about Saturday morning cartoons and how there used to be just the only time where they had animation on TV was Saturday morning. Then it became afternoons every day. Then it became 24 hours a day. Then it became your iPad. You just push random buttons on your iPad and it spits out cartoons. So the world's gotten better for kids, I guess. It's certainly gotten easier. But let's get started today on Bitcoin Talk Show. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and a share. That helps more people find the show. Today is Sunday, September 2nd, 2018. My name is Thomas Hunt, and here's what's happening today in Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin is up 1% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 7,266, a high of 7,343, and a low of 7,135. That's $1 for 13,788 satoshis, still casually under that 15,000 satoshi barrier. Is it heading to 10 or maybe back to 15? Let's give this sucker a spin. Here we go. Big money. The top 10 altcoins sorted by volume against the price of Bitcoin. Ethereum, Ethereum down 1.25%. Bitcoin Cash up 3.75%. EOS down 2.5%. Litecoin down 2.5%. Ripple down 2.5%. Ethereum Classic up 1.5%. Dash down about 4.25%. Dogecoin, hello, down 21%, back down to 69 satoshis after rising to 92 satoshis yesterday for no apparent reason. And Qtum down about 2.5%, rounding out the top 10. No such luck for Zcash, Neo, Tron, Ontology, or Cardano, all of whom fall out of the top 10. Looking at the top distributed applications, IDEX falls under 2,000 daily active users. It must be those Saturday and Sunday blues. Fork Delta also falls under 1,000 daily active users, with CryptoKitties, POW, A3D, Bancor, and the others rounding out the top 10 with less than 400 daily active users every day. This looks about under 3,000 daily active users for the top 5 distributed applications. Checking out the most active blockchains, it seems like the stress test is still running on Bitch. Bitch in second place behind EOS, with Steam and Ethereum not far behind. Bitcoin rounding out the 5th position with 41% of the Bitcoin blocks in use. Checking out Ethereum, they still have 63,000 unconfirmed transactions. We are still waiting for the Ethereum blockchain to clear. Checking out our Tallycoin fundraiser, it looks like the QR code works. Thanks to our donor, 0.00069,545 for testing it out and breaking the 777. We now have 0.0784. People want us to look DApp Radar at EOS apps. I don't know what. Is this a different page? Let's see. Why wouldn't they just list them on the normal page? Oh, EOS actually has some users, or they're faking users. 4,000 daily active users for something called PRA Candy Box, with EOS Nights, EOS Bets, Dex EOS, and Pump Dump Wars, all with about 300 users each. EOS Nights has 1,000, so it looks like there is some activity on the EOS dApps, maybe more than the normal dApps. Maybe the old dApps are the Ethereum dApps and the new dApps are the EOS dApps. I wonder. But checking out our Tallycoin campaign, we've received 0.0784 Bitcoin. That's $568.93. That's 0.06% towards our goal to raise $1 million to help spread the word about Bitcoin. You can donate now at the QR code on your screen. Check it out. 1 million dollars in Bitcoin. Now only 137 Bitcoin. It used to be about 150. When we started, it was 125. Could have gotten this thing cheap. Checking out the World Crypto Network, where we've broken another round number on our way to breaking another round number. We have 60,900 subscribers. Means about 20 of you joined us yesterday. Thanks so much for subscribing. If we could get 100 more subscribers, we would break the unbreakable 61,000 subscriber barrier. And be sure to hit that bell for notifications. Yesterday on the channel, we had one show. It was called Saturday Morning Bitcoin Talk Show. I remember that. I can hear myself talking. Let's see. We had a very active chat. We got 110 likes. You've got to sign in if you want to like a video, though. And that it was good enough for 1,146 views. A very active chat leading to a very active comment section. Crypto Noob helps us out with a comment and a timestamp. Way to go. He says the Byzantium generals problem elucidated. Ooh. Dan Williams likes yesterday's comments. He says it's so meta. Oh, that reminds me. It's time for everyone's favorite part of the show, yesterday's comments. It's very meta. Roy says at a timestamp, yes, peer-to-peer value transfer. How about the peers that use Swift? I've always thought that was one of the big use cases for Bitcoin, not the small merchant stuff. Consumers will always have a tough time understanding why this Bitcoin thing, but the Swift users will get it right away. They move roughly $5 trillion per day around the globe, 9,000 financial institutions in 209 countries. And Roy's right. Bitcoin seems like it would work a lot better for Swift or international money transfer or any large movement of money, paying for a house, things like this. Bitcoin's great for this because you can only send the money one direction. No one can back out of this escrow. It goes all in, all the way, right away. And remember, if we just take a small portion of the gold market, if we just take a small portion of the Swift market, and then if we do what previous digital technologies have done, we take it all. Crypto Noob says there's classic stuff at 7:14. Check it out. You can leave a timestamp in the comments down below simply by adding in the numbers and a colon. Club 80 says shout out to Jeremy, shout out to Thomas, and shout out to WCN. And BL Dewyan says Andreas is a star. He tells the world the beacon of Bitcoin that is, and you echo it in the WCN by reading him. It is a system whereby no elite can control its production, development, and ultimately its use. The banks do whatever it takes to maintain their position of hegemony and control. Well, we do not know how long it will take, but Bitcoin will prevail because it empowers people. This show will be history. Future humans will go through the archives of WCN and see how some dedicated people tried so tirelessly to inform the world and so understand this new networked money. Whether they will understand or not its quirkiness, I don't know. But you are leaving your distinct prints all over all the episodes. Thank you so much for what you're doing. BL Dewyan. Thanks so much for joining us in yesterday's comments. You can leave a comment today just as soon as the show ends and it renders. You have to wait for Google to render it. Comment section is never closed. It's just rendering. We had the announcer guy on yesterday's thumbnail. And check out the new hats they're showing off at the Lightning Hackaday. Exilion hats, I guess. Samson Mao has his own hat company now. Proof of hat. There it is. Care instructions, hodl. Hilarious. And they have reckless lightning hats at the hackathon. Very cool. Let's see. ML is amused by the fact that Mad Bitcoins regularly reads out loud, pretending not to know that the mic and camera is on. Keep it up. Yes, it's always a surprise when you people are there. We've got Ledger writing about Bitcoin maximalists, blockchain on campus, and Doge. Maybe you were the ones. You were the ones that drove it up. This was a pretty good GIF. We might have some time. You can't quite hear it because I'm on the wrong screen, but there it is. It's Rambo, and it's going. Very funny, I thought. But that's what Twitter's like. The Federal Reserve of Ethereum has carefully examined the jobs numbers, consumer price index, and inflation, and determined that their pre-sale coins needed more leverage. That's right, Ethereum, which is centrally controlled by the developers, decided instead of producing 3 Ethereum per block, they would produce 2, thus enriching themselves. Aren't you glad you invested in Ethereum? The Dutch have no helmets and no problems. Look at how they created a casual biking culture. The first thing they did is if the cars are going too fast, they build barriers between the bike lane and the cars. They also have this great idea that the bikes have the right of way, and you can just keep on driving. It's jarring as an American. You have to just follow the Dutch. Just follow the bike in front of you and keep riding through the intersection. The cars will stop for you, and they actually get confused if you don't stop, or if you do try to stop. They're like, "What the heck's wrong with this biker? He should just be flying through here with the others." Had an update. There was a worse investment than Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash last year. You could have invested in Sears. The company that owns Sears and Kmart lost more than 80% of its value in the last year. The article tells the story how Kenmore used to be an attractive brand for Whirlpool, and they would release their best and newest products through Sears. And now Whirlpool has broken up with Sears, taking all of their products away. Sears has sold the Craftsman brand to Black & Decker, and they have almost nothing left. Can I get you a Sears catalog? Do you need something to sit on? Sears, a once great American company, now almost nothing. I've been watching the new Jack Ryan show. It's advertised everywhere that I go. It has Jim from The Office, except now he's incredibly buff. He's supposed to be an analyst, but he never sits at his desk. The new Jack Ryan. And for your information, not a spoiler exactly, the new bad guy in the new Jack Ryan is upset because the bank wouldn't listen to his ideas about digital banking. And there is some racism as well. They don't like him because he's an Islamic or an Arab gentleman. The people in the movie are racist. But, also.
Whoa, wait a minute. And I thought they didn't like him because they blew up his brother.
Well, okay, that was no, you got to go back. Well, first of all, he survives. The funny thing, you've seen the show, right? So
yeah, I've only seen, I think the first episode and a half or something like that. But I was encouraged because I was like, oh, great, more American exceptionalism propaganda.
That's what I said yesterday. I said I'm watching this, and you guys are going to be all critical, and it's jingoism, and I definitely feel that. I mean, I read all the Clancy books in the time period and all that, so for me, it's just seeing these old characters, driven through new material. So it's really strange for me. But no, what do you think? Have you enjoyed it so far?
I have, actually. It wasn't that bad. What I expected was the typical Top Gun, right? Where like the Soviets are really impressive and they're going to kill us all, and only politicians stand in their way to protect you. But at least so far, I mean, I was impressed that they showed that the bad guy had a reason to be pissed off. That's a rare amount of honesty in American propaganda. So I was.
Well, it might be a scene beyond, but there is a scene where he's more in his post-college years, and he's looking for his first job, and he's kind of a nervous attorney-looking, accountant-looking type guy. And pretty much everyone's kind of looking down on him because he's an Arab person. There's this idea, like the police officer said, in France, you are either French or you are not French. And he is not French. But at the same time,
okay, so they start out with the real reason that people
they start out exactly, and he's mad for that reason. But in my tweet, I highlight what he's actually saying, and this is like, Hitler wanted to be a painter. This guy wanted to be a digital banker. He's telling the people across the screen, and he sounds a little extremist even here. And he's saying, you've got to get into digital banking, and people don't want to come into a branch, and they want it on their phone. And I'm sitting there like, this guy's a Bitcoiner. This guy's a big, you're not supposed to like him. I mean, he's one of the worst characters in the thing, and he does horrible things later in the show and so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, in a little way, his modus operandi, his reason d'etre is this I want digital banking.
All right. Well, so
and his ideas were
ahead of its time. I take back everything positive that I said about it then, because if they managed to turn Bitcoiners into future terrorists because we're not being accepted and loved by the banking system, that's really awful. But the way they started out the show was good. So however they sold the pilot, there was some truth to it, and maybe they.
I think you should keep going. It's not directly about Bitcoin, but it's just kind of I think it's that his eyes.
Look, man, what I'm saying is it pisses me off when we talk about terror and we talk about guerrilla warfare and all that stuff, and we don't acknowledge that we almost always get attacked by people that we killed first. Right? that it's our intervention in foreign countries and quote trying to set up democracy, but it's really just our massive spending, warfare welfare state machine that is churning through people outside of our borders. And as this machine grinds up people, it spits out a certain number of people that are really pissed off that it's grinding up people. So if you're going to talk about terrorism and have a Jack Ryan type story and not have that be the theme, then it crosses. I mean, for me, anything that doesn't like just embrace that head on and tries to soften it by being like, oh, this guy was, had a stutter and couldn't get a bank loan or, whatever, that is just propaganda.
I think that the main thing they were shooting at is that the guy has grandiose ideas and he gets upset when people don't listen to him. And he's a certain type of personality. I mean, a Hitlerian type where he's like, you have to listen to my grandiose ideas or I hate you. I mean, I think that's
right. But all that is bullshit, right? That's all back to they hate us for our freedom type nonsense, right? Like if you listen to the people that attacked us and they say why they attacked us, it's always you occupied my country, right? Like it's always a Vietnam type situation. And, to say, oh, well, yes, we have, like in 20 years, we're going to get attacked from people that grew up in Iraq, right? I guarantee it's going to happen because we killed millions of people in Iraq, right? We've gone on record saying, yeah, we did have to basically kill 500,000 children through embargoes and other things that we did, blowing up water treatment plants and stuff like that. But it was worth it. If you kill 500,000
hospitals, children, we also bombed hospitals.
And in 20 years, there's going to be another freaking Amazon show, and it's going to have somebody that was in Iraq, and it's not going to say, oh, it was because you killed a significant portion of my family, and I've been completely devastated and obsessed with seeing your blood ever since. It's going to be, I have a stutter, I couldn't get a bank loan. Somebody rejected me for college because I have brown skin or something. That's not the story, right? And ignoring that is malicious as hell. I mean, it's just absolutely evil to try to say that that is not the sole and singular thing that's going on here. And you can do some character development, right? You can make him have a stutter. I don't care. But if you make it seem like we're getting attacked by terrorists and it doesn't have anything to do with the trade policies that we have, starving people to death, being an evil empire that's constantly just doing terrible things to people and making money off of it, this military industrial complex system. If you don't acknowledge that as the primary driver for all this stuff, then it's just cheap propaganda to me, and it pisses me off. So far, the show hasn't got there, but it sounds like it's headed that direction.
They do change his motivations. I agree. Originally, I thought it was the bombing in Yemen or something that's in the first scene, that was his main motivation. It was just a straightforward revenge. But it also seems like he's kind of radicalized in prison. Not a surprising thing, but yes, something goes wrong. He goes to prison. He becomes a radical. Unfortunately, it's a religious aspect to the radicalization. But yeah, that's a big part of the show. And there's also there's a religious component added into the show. They've made the James Earl Jones character, they've made him a Muslim, which makes him a very interesting character, as he's a high-ranking CIA agent involved in all of these things on the ground in the field, and yet at the same time, he has this religious affiliation. So it is an interesting show in that way. But I agree with you that yes, we've done things to them in the past. At one point, though, that goes back to all countries forever. But it is worth noting, I was certainly against the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War before we invaded. I thought that the idea after 9/11, as hard as it would have been, what would be for George W. Bush, the Christian president, to say, turn the other cheek. And we're building 1,000 new hospitals in the Holy Land, and we're going to build 1,000 new food marts. And America is going to be known around the world for giving away food and giving away medical care. And if anyone doesn't like us, that's what they'll dislike us for. Something like that would have been great. Even just a community program saying, let's all build baseball fields and let's all have community baseball games and hang out as a family together in the streets. That would have been great. But instead, he told us to go shopping.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other thing that he could have done is he could have said, "Oh, we were attacked by a criminal. Let's deal with the criminal," right? And I'm not
Absolutely,
saying that
absolutely, yeah.
because we screwed over a bunch of people in the Middle East, some of them get to go on an airplane and blow up some other innocent people, and we should respond, kind and gentle to that. Those people should be killed. They should be tracked down and dealt with the way that criminals are dealt with when they kill innocent people. But what we shouldn't have done is had a list of 5 countries that was already on the shelf ready to go because we wanted to, quote, increase our influence or get access to whatever resources or whatever, and use that attack to execute that. And we're still in the middle of that, right? Like Afghanistan as a country, they had nothing to do with it. Saudi Arabia actually had a lot to do with it, but we're not messing with them because they're, quote, allies. Iraq had absolutely nothing to do with it, right? There was no weapons of mass destruction. All of that was bullshit. And 9/11 was used as an excuse to go invade entire countries when there were only a few dozen people that were involved with this attack. That doesn't make any sense at all. So we don't have to be all kumbaya about it. We can go after the bad guys. But do we really have to blow up water treatment plants when somebody blows up and kills a bunch of innocent people? Like, do we really have to connect that dot? That's clearly not a good strategy. It's really not related. And it's really just doing what we've done quite a bit, is taking advantage of a tragedy and making things worse. So yeah.
Well, the best justification for destroying infrastructure is that we get paid when we rebuild the infrastructure, right? That's always worked in the past, and especially during other wars, you can not bomb certain factories and leave them alone because we own those. But people can go look that up. They don't want to. But I do want to mention, while we're talking about this very dramatic subject, that I would recommend the book The Mirage by Matt Ruff. It was one of the best books I read a couple of years ago. It basically imagines another world. It's a fiction book. And he imagines a world where instead of the airplane hitting the World Trade Center, that an airplane piloted by Christian fundamentalists hit the World Islamic Trade Center. And that it's a world where Islam is in charge and the Americans, or the small part of them, are the terrorists. And it was really interesting to look at this world and see through another eyes, and very much a Philip K. Dick man out of his world, because of course the character that we're following sees all the differences and is always making comparisons and trying to understand what the heck happened to him and why is he in this world. And I think that was a really cool book. You should check it out. It's called The Mirage.
Does it acknowledge that there is a religious basis? Like there's a reason at this point. You could say it's a point in history, or you could say it's based on religion, but there's clearly a difference between there's clearly a difference between the idea of like jihad and the Christian ethic, and that is probably playing out. Because I don't want to come across as like
historically the Crusades and the slavery and the Roman Empire and a lot of things have been backed by Christianity. So I think it's tough to say that there, and even Buddhism, which I think is a religion of peace, there were kamikaze Buddhists. I mean, there were
this is what I'm saying. Like
have had this problem.
I don't have to embrace the idea that like Islam is beautiful, right? In order to think that we shouldn't go to war with a bunch of other, like 5 countries, because we get attacked by a few dozen people. I don't think that Islam is beautiful. I do think that there are teachings that are very clearly set up to cause people to have a tendency to go to war. I think, if you look at the Old Testament, it's a real stretch. There's no Christian teaching really. Maybe there's somebody dancing with snakes right now in Alabama that has like 3 people that show up on Sunday, but there's not a contingent of Christians in the world that believe that the Crusades were supported by the teachings of Christianity, and that believe that we should be using violence as a way to push forward our ideals. But let's not be stupid here, and let's acknowledge that there is a lot of that in Islam, right? There's a lot of people that there's a lot of passages that have not like been deprecated in a way that the Old Testament has been deprecated with regard to like taking over the Holy Land and stuff like that. And that is a very possible explanation for the tendency. And that there's a lot of very popular teachers of the Islamic faith that endorse things like jihad, right? Like we don't have to completely pretend that they're they're the same thing to say that we shouldn't kill innocent people. Like, that's all I'm saying. I'm just saying, if Osama bin Laden orchestrated
where we need
bombing,
to,
we shouldn't go after, Africa.
yeah, we need to start with a more universal idea, like not killing people is a good thing. And then if we could all agree on universal ideas, then we could come together and all of these smaller things wouldn't matter so much. So
Innocent people, though, right? Like, killing bad people is a good thing.
I don't know even about that, but because who's bad and compared to what. So
The people that killed innocent people are bad. I'll take that. If you could sign off on that, we'd be 90%.
Well, some bad stuff happens in the Jack Ryan show, and I'm rooting for revenge. Right? It's a revenge picture now. So
all right. So,
we'll see.
Yeah, I think we've run that one to ground.
I think we've done the political one, but now we're going to do the Bitcoin one because we've got a great Beauty on tweet here. He says, "The race to become the home of Bitcoin is on. Companies like BitMEX were just the first generation of true to nature Bitcoin companies that will be worth billions. Colombian incorporation is identical to any other when it comes to software." And he's referencing this article that the doors of Colombia are open. Colombia's president tells the cryptocurrency industry, "Come here and we'll even waive your taxes." So Puerto Rico has got some competition with Colombia. What do you think, JW? Are you on the next plane? Are you getting out of here? Going to Colombia?
No, I'm not going to Colombia is because one of the reasons, well, I'll give you two reasons why I'm not going to Colombia. One is that if I fall down and I get cut, I want there to be whole blood within an hour of me, because that increases my chance of survival quite a bit. So that sort of modern technology is really valuable to me. I don't want to go back to the dark ages, and that's how those people live, unfortunately. And secondly, I want to be able to have the tools that I need. If 3 people broke into my house right now, there'd be 3 dead people, and I want to be able to maintain that, and I can't do that in Colombia.
Oh, come on. William Gibson said the data havens were going to be in Brazil. So Brazil's right over here. Colombia's right here.
Oh man, I might put my data down there. I'm cool with putting my data anywhere that's reasonably safer, but I'm not putting my
people
body
haven't
anywhere.
looked at this America very much yet because it's South and it's not as trendy as this North America. But I've heard good things about this South America. Maybe they're going to be the next home of Bitcoin. Don't know. Someone is in the chat says Uruguay.
What I'm saying is I wouldn't put my loved ones anywhere where they're not going to have access to good medical care.
Puerto Rico's still available. Let's see what we've got right here. Today in conservatism, Laura Ingraham suggests that it might be time for the government to take over Facebook and Twitter and run them as public utilities to eliminate bias against conservatives. And I had talked about this when we talked about the dramatic issues of so-called censorship and so on and so forth. And I didn't agree with her idea, but I did mention it kind of as a possible solution and a way to understand how people were seeing this issue. People kept coming to me and saying, Facebook is censoring them. And I said, no, Facebook is private property. Like people were saying in this chat, they were like, oh, you're censoring us from this chat. I'm like, no, this chat is more like private property. This is more like my living room. You came into my living room and you ran dirt all over the room. And yeah, we kicked you out. Like, I mean, that's the way it is. And that's, again, because this is private property. If this was a public utility, like they're saying here, if it was like Major League Baseball, then we'd all have the right to use Facebook and we'd all have the right to use Twitter. Once again, though, that is the right to use it, not the right to use it without consequences. If you come out and say some horrible thing and you scream it at somebody and everyone turns and looks at you and they say, my God, he screamed some horrible thing, you're going to face the consequences of your free speech. But you have the right to say that. You won't be penalized directly for saying the horrible thing. People might just not want to work in business with you and they might not want to drink your cola or whatever. JW, what do you got on this one? Pretty hot topic, so be careful.
Yeah, I keep thinking that I want to do a show on this, but it's kind of I don't know. I don't feel like anybody's doing a really good job talking about it. Actually, Beauty on in a podcast, I think it was Stephen Livera's podcast, had some really good comments. But in general, I think most people are missing the point. When Elaine Ow, I believe is how you pronounce her name, wrote about the case for private property, that you actually have private property on Facebook, I think that's actually not a terrible case. I think that's a very valid perspective. And the idea is similar to squatters' rights, or easement is probably a better way to think of it. Like if you have a piece of property that you buy, and for generations people have been walking through part of that property to get to a stream and then walking back, then they have a right to it, right? Any decent legal system is going to say, yes, that's your property. However, these people have a right. They have an easement on that property. You can't just cut that off and, overnight starve a village that's become dependent on access to that resource, because it was they were welcome to use it for a long time, right?
I don't know. It seems it's very questionable. Now, certainly if it was like eminent domain and like you're saying to starve a village, that's one thing. But if it's just access to the beach or something.
Well, look, this is what I'm saying. Like this has been a well-established rule of law for basically all of human history, that this is how we have resolved property.
Because I mean, I see it from the other guy's perspective, where Facebook works very hard to make Facebook, and they have certain rules. They don't have pornography on Facebook, for example, or maybe they do. I'm just not.
Well, it's even more complicated than that. I'm just
saying they made their digital world, and just because they let you hang out in their digital world, do you think you own part of it? I mean, so that just doesn't seem very libertarian to me.
Well, that's because you don't understand what libertarianism is. Libertarianism is a respect of private property, and defining what private property.
You just said you own his private property because you hung out there a lot.
Dude, you got to let me finish the sentence. What I'm saying is that libertarianism is respect for private property. Defining what private property is very difficult. It's harder than building an iPhone. And the only way through human history that we've done a good job at that is through free market law. And when we have had free market law, we've discovered things that are often very much based on custom and expectation, right? We don't have a bunch of old people sitting in a room writing lists of rules. We say, well, for 200 years, these people have had access to this stream. So how just would it be if we immediately cut that off because somebody...
I'm not sure with this 200 years being any kind of thing, because I mean the whole property issue in the Middle East is that 200 years ago my family owned it, and 200 years ago my family owned it, and 200 years before that my family owned it. I mean, none of this.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying for 200 years, not 200 years ago. That's a different problem. Either way, though, I think that if people are listening right now and they can realize that determining what property rights are is difficult, it's not easy. You and I are not going to do a better job than generations of full-time judges studying what is just and making decisions and correcting each other would. You and I should be, have the opportunity to be an advocate, to be a judge in this case and try to discover what is the right thing to do. But we need to be tempered by a free market, where if we make bad decisions, people are free to opt out of our service and follow somebody else and opt into their service. And when we've seen that, we have seen people we have seen laws emerge to recognize customs, to recognize patterns and expectations and behavior that have included easements. Every civilization in the world currently recognizes easements. This is not something that is like super controversial. Now, applying that, and this is what a good judge does, is he says, okay, this is how we have resolved these problems fairly and justly in the past, but Facebook or Twitter is a unique situation. How do we apply generally applicable principles in a fair and just way? That's not easy, is what I'm saying. It's very difficult. And it's as hard as being the top, hardware engineer at Apple trying to figure out how to make the battery smaller or whatever. And we should acknowledge that it's difficult. And I think that she made a valid argument, right? I'm not saying she's right, but I'm saying that she makes a very valid argument that we actually have private property rights on Twitter and on Facebook. That said, I don't even that is very important, but it still misses the core issue, in my opinion, because
now that's a very tough way for me to come at it, that direction. If you come at it from more the Facebook is monopoly and you don't have any other choices, therefore Facebook should be regulated as a monopoly, then you start to get more rights.
Right. That's because you love government power, and which is my second point.
Well, no, I can't believe you're willing to, take this Facebook from my cold, dead hands. I can't believe you're willing to give up any of the private Facebook to the public sphere just because the public hung out there.
That's because you don't understand what I'm saying. You don't understand that I'm
like
not
people call
talking
me
about,
socialist, right?
I'm not talking about taking anything from Facebook. The question is Facebook taking something from you? And that is a question of who has what private property, and that's not easy, is all I'm saying. But I
Facebook
don't even
doesn't
think
take
we have to
anything from
answer
me.
that question. The beauty of this particular circumstance is we don't even have to answer that question. And I'll tell you why. With this whole problem with Twitter and Facebook, everybody, left, right, indifferent, you, everybody else, seems to think that the answer is to give the government more power. That is always the answer, right? No matter what the problem is, give the government more power. But
Well, I
almost
mean,
always,
they gave the Silicon Valley people the open space, and they
no,
said,
they didn't.
okay, I think, well, I believe they did. And
Well,
what
I'm
the
about to
Silicon
explain to you
Valley
why
people
they
did
didn't.
is they built the fastest network they could that was the best for the advertisers.
No,
The real beneficiaries of Facebook and these other platforms are the advertisers who get more data and better targeted ads.
you're
So
wrong.
that's
And
what
I'll
the
tell you why
system's
you're wrong.
built for.
You're
It
wrong.
could have been built for encryption and privacy, but they didn't build it that way. They built it this way because it was cheap, easy, and they got paid.
So you're wrong. And I'll tell you that this is the typical pattern. The typical pattern is the government creates a problem by invading people's private property. That creates nasty side effects in addition to the problem of just taking people's stuff. And the solution is always more invasion of private property. That's the principle. And now I'm going to explain to you how it applies to Facebook. Facebook was a private company. They set up servers, they started operating. They should not have been liable for any criminal activity that takes place using their network. So if you're running a phone company and somebody has a conversation about blowing up a building down the street or protesting some government policy, you're not supposed to be liable for that. That's not a crime to sell people pens and then be liable for what they write on a piece of paper. We've never had that concept, and that concept is imputed liability or something like this, right? Like you're liable, you're an enabler is sort of the idea, right? We've never had that before. That was a new concept that we got hit with, and that got really codified in, I think, 2008. And as a result, Facebook, Craigslist, everybody that builds software is legally liable for the conversations that people have on their platform. If somebody says something that the government doesn't like, the platform itself is liable. Now, that caused a problem. And that problem is that if you're Facebook, you sure as hell better censor everything that everybody says and stay in the government's good graces, right? Now, I think that Facebook is left leaning. I've done work there. I know people that work there. Silicon Valley in general is left leaning. So it doesn't surprise me that they're coming down on conservatives harder. But the whole circumstance is they are forced to be censors. The government is forcing them. The government is invading their private property and saying, we are going to punish you if you don't behave the way that we want you to. Now, the solution could be to give the government even more power, just to take over the companies entirely and decide what people are going to be able to post and what they're not going to be able to post. Or for the government to set up some kind of an API. And every time somebody posts something to Twitter, we can just throw it through the government approved filter and pop it out to Twitter. These are the sort of solutions that for some reason, both Republicans and Democrats seem to embrace. Why is that? The answer is that they're all statists. They all love the government. They all think that it's going to take care of them. And it's always the solution to problems. The solution is never to give people their private property back.
All right. I think we covered that one. BCH had a stress test. There were bottlenecks around the services, causing transaction generators to slow and error out, preventing the mempool from exceeding 22 megabytes. The largest block was 21.35 megabytes. The average block size was 3.6 megabytes, 11% of maximum capacity, and 16% of the Bitcoin ABC nodes dropped off the network. So, more bad news for BCH. We had this great video show up of a Lamborghini. It started off, this guy was filming it because he thought, hey, cool Lambo. But then the Lambo guy started to show off by running the gasoline on his car while he was stopped. And it didn't turn out quite so good for him. There it is right there. His car caught on fire. So there you go. You have a Lamborghini. It seems to be in Dubai. He had to chase after him to tell him, And there it is, a Lamborghini on fire. Some kind of ritual. What do you think, JW? Is this like a religious thing for Bitcoiners? You're like the burning of the Lamborghini?
Yeah, it should be. Actually, what's even better than that is that oh gosh, what was it? Over $1 billion that Bitmain, was it Bitmain? How did they do this? It was just a few days ago. They did something and it cost them over $1 billion. And it was something they actually invested in. It wasn't like market cap or price or something. I wish I could remember what it was,
Well, I
but
know
we
they invested in some AI chips and they had some other new Bitcoin chips that didn't work out.
Oh, that's what it was. It was
Yeah.
all of the hardware investment. It was actually their gross revenue on Crapcoin hardware exceeded $1 billion over the last few years. And that is just spectacular. I mean, that is like $1 billion worth of resources floated out into the ocean and then just set on fire. It is a terrible and awful thing to behold. The amount of good that could have been done with that $1 billion is unbelievable. But they don't have it anymore, at least, so they won't be able to do as much destruction in the future. So that's the ultimate Lambo fire is Bitmain.
We need to have another end of the year competition or something about the worst waste of money in Bitcoin. And whether it is, like you say, Bitmain putting the money into the AI or the new chips or whatever, or there was that guy from Ripple who died with $500 million, his complete fortune locked up, none of it given to his family or relatives, completely burnt.
Yeah,
That
see,
one's
but
pretty
that's not
bad.
as bad because that's like
That was
$500
an
million
accident, at
dollars.
least. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but if his family actually got that, this is a huge distinction. If his family actually got that 500 quote million dollars and they tried to sell it, it would have immediately tanked the price because there's not
Sure.
that much depth to the market. So maybe you could have got away with, I don't know, $30 million, 40, $50 million. So that's a lot. But Bitmain, like people actually gave money to Bitmain and they took that money and they used human talent and resources, precious metals, all this sort of stuff to build chips, over $1 billion worth of chips that are literally good for nothing except mining a crap coin that's completely worthless. That is like real tangible destruction. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, you're right. It includes all the resources and everything too. That's a real waste of stuff. And finally, we had a shout out to Crypto Bushido. He says his buddy sent him this pic. He's in Vegas and he's just saying mass adoption, Bitcoin. Look at that right there at the Golden Gate Hotel and Casino. They accept Bitcoin at the front desk. This is a sister hotel to the D that also accept Bitcoin, both of them on old Fremont Street down there in Las Vegas. I think we went through most of the news. There's a little bit of this revenge of the Bitcoin believers that we're right again because the price went up and because all of the altcoins fell by 80 or 90%, whereas Bitcoin only fell by 65%. Very much a relief to all of us, I'm sure. We talked about Jack Ryan, lots of political stuff. Tom Lee says that Ethereum futures are bad for Ethereum, but that futures are good for Bitcoin. Interesting idea. He thinks that Ethereum futures trading will have opposing effects on the price trajectories of the top two currencies. He says, interesting stuff. Yeah, I wonder why he says Ethereum is different. Let's see. Ethereum is more likely to be directly affected by a strengthened or weakened dollar or an increase or decrease in ICO token utility. So that's interesting. Ethereum is more tied to the traditional markets, they believe. And I think this is definitely true, tied to an increase or decrease in ICO token utility activity. If several of the companies were to give up on Ethereum and sell their tokens, that would cause the price to go down. Even whenever I see a new ICO being raised on Ethereum, I think that it's eventually going to cause the price to go down because those people have to sell their Ethereum to get their money so they can run their company. Global Bitcoin ATM market to be worth 145 million by 2023. How about that? Looks pretty good for Bitcoin ATMs. More and more buy and sell Bitcoin ATMs are coming in. Two-way ATMs, but they say one-way ATMs dominate the market with 62% being one-way ATMs and only 37% as two-way ATMs. much more likely to find a Bitcoin vending machine than to find a true two-way ATM. The Bitcoin price is more reliable in 2018, says SFOX exec. I don't know what SFOX is. They say it's a cryptocurrency prime dealer for large-scale investors. Ooh la la. And they say it's a step up, not down for cryptocurrencies. It's been a tough year, right? The price has been down, but all the news has generally been good. The technology's better. There's more and more interest from companies. There's more and more interest from people. Venezuela's very interested in Bitcoin. A lot of other, like the Turkish lira is down 70%. They're starting to get interested in Bitcoin. We're still waiting for that perfect powder keg where the people have their phones and they have their Bitcoin and they have their Bitcoin ATM, and then there's a collapse. That's the one we're still waiting for. But we've gotten very close. But for all of these ones, we have to bring in the infrastructure. So it's much harder to get things rolling. Whereas a country like Japan, that has the technology people, would maybe shift to Bitcoin faster than someone like Venezuela, where they just don't have as much technology. And finally, a Washington utility has increased power rates for Bitcoin mining. This doesn't seem right. The commission utility says they have a new rate for cryptocurrency mining, so it sounds like discrimination to me. Miners had flocked to the region because of its cheap hydroelectric power, but now the miners want that power. All right, JW, give it to us on this one. Should they be restricting Bitcoin miners specifically? This doesn't even seem right to me.
Well, I mean, so the goal of government, right, is to extract as much wealth as possible from the people that it holds captive. So, yeah, absolutely, they're just being good gangsters by doing this. Why wouldn't they do that? If especially if I mean, as a gangster, it's a good play if the people won't leave. So you want to fleece them as much as possible before they actually go to another location. It's tough to do that with Bitcoin mining though, because there's not a whole lot of it. Like most of the investment is movable, is mobile. So the question from the gangster's perspective is how much can we increase the rates and screw over people and take their stuff without having them leave? And I think if there's been a lot of investment, which there probably has been in their area, and they don't expect to have a whole lot more, and people have invested in buildings and facilities and that sort of stuff, they can probably screw them over a bit and get away with it. So yeah, great idea. Perfect.
Now, you see, I totally agree with the gangsterism, but I think they're just thinking short. This is too much short gangsterism. I want to see long gangsterism where you're more like, we need a permanent mining industry. We have hydroelectric power. These are great potential consumers. We could get 5 more of these mines. Maybe we could build a new dam. Maybe we could build more hydroelectric power. I mean, I'm thinking that way. So I just think it's short-sighted.
No, I totally agree that it is, but gangsters tend to be pretty short-sighted. So what's really going on here is that the local politicians that are in a position to increase rates, they're just trying to figure out how to get the most money for their next election campaign, how to get more power. So they're doing what any good politician would do. They're picking a group of people to screw over that are less popular. So sometimes it's race-based, sometimes it's something like this. And the trick is, especially if the group of people that you're screwing over are going to respond by paying extortion money, by, contributing to your next campaign, which is exactly what I would do if I was one of these miners, right? If they're going to raise my rates, that's a shot across the bow. I would have preferred that they just threatened to do it so that I could make the payoff payments to the next, political campaign without having to experience the initial rate hike. Like just make it a cleaner payoff. But yeah, I mean, the miners now know that they need to start, quote, getting involved with local politics, which just means writing checks to gangsters a little bit more frequently. So, in a way it's short term, but you got to remember these gangsters, they move around, and a lot of times they have ambitions to leave where they're at and move up. So if you're, some city councilman in Ephrata, you probably would like to move to Olympia and be a state senator. And if you can make the right moves and screw over the right people in the right ways, then you can pull that off. So no, I think it's a great move. They should definitely do this.
There's nothing to see here, officer. These aren't miners. These are simply heaters. And I hate silence. I love noise. These are the loudest heaters I could find on the market. Nothing to see here.
Yeah, no, actually, you bring up a good point because one of the side effects of this theft will be that people are now incentivized to just set up shipping containers in their backyard and just hopefully hide them and tell the neighbors, hide the noise as much as possible. And maybe pay off the neighbors, give them a piece of it.
Cut them in, get them in the mob, right? Juice
Well,
them in,
I mean,
juice
actually,
them in.
this is not mafia behavior. This is avoiding the mafia, right? So you have a right to plug in miners and mine them, and it is obviously illegitimate to charge people different rates for what they're going to use electricity for, right? Like, you're using your hair dryer too often. I'm going to charge you a different rate. No private company would do anything like that. So the gangsters are those guys. When you're setting up a miner in your backyard, you're just avoiding the gangsters as much as possible. And private property is complicated. So is a miner that's making
it's my religious right to have this miner. This is part of my religion. And everyone in my neighborhood who shares in the profits of our mining farm is part of our religion. So,
well, I mean, it would be noisy. So you would be invading the private property of your neighbor by making a bunch of noise and maybe keeping them up at night. So you may have to compensate them for that. And that would be totally just and fine too. There's nothing wrong with any of that. But the point is that even if you're just a normal, honest person, you're either going to be writing checks to politicians to stay in business, or you're going to be trying to hide your business and avoid and hide from the gangsters, and that sets off, all kinds of other problems.
but in the future, the politicians will take Bitcoin, and that'll just make everything better.
In the future, the politicians will be defunded because they won't be able to tax effectively.
Ooh, dun dun dun! Spoiler alert! No spoilers. CCN says a clear-headed response to the crypto ETF rejections drove the Bitcoin price to $7,100. Oh, so that's what it was. I'm glad we finally figured out that that's what it was. Oh, the mystery solved. You can support the World Crypto Network by donating Bitcoin or any of the crazy altcoins to the QR codes on your screen right now. Or you can donate at patreon.com/WCN, where we're doing a very good job, actually. My new standard for Patreon is that we're holding our position. We are holding our position at 32 patrons with $234 a month. Very good. Whereas at Mad Bitcoins, we are on a continued decline. So we're at 75 patrons donating $441 a month. Donate so we can reach back at that $500 barrier that we got so close to. Once again, remember Patreon, they charge everyone around the first. So everyone's credit card goes bad and you end up getting less money in donations than you thought you were going to get. And this happens every month. So welcome to Patreon. What a great user experience. That's okay. They're not listening. And we've got one more story. I saved it for the end. I'm so glad JW is here. I know you're going to love this. This is bitcoin.com. I said I'd never read them again, but they are so great. Listen to this. The Bitcoin standard. Bitch, troll slayer, faces off against Bitcoin's angriest man. And they've got this guy who's a bitch troll slayer. And that doesn't mean that he slays bitch trolls. It means that he actually works for bitch. So he's on the Bcash side, and he's out there. He's going to take down Safedine Amos, who wrote the book, The Bitcoin Standard. I'll bet you guys got it. You've already written it down. You've put it in your envelope, and you sealed it. You sent it back to yourself. Did this guy write a book called The Bitcoin Cash Standard? Did he refute Safedine in writing using the King's English, full of notations and annotations and his own personal thoughts? Nah, he just wrote a review. He wrote a review and he took down the Bitcoin standard. Let's see. He misspells the author's first name. Nice job. I don't know why you would do that. I don't know why they would celebrate that. So just a very strange article from the other side. This is what it looks like when you go to France and you read like Vichy propaganda, and they're talking about how good the Nazis are and how bad the Americans and the French are. So this is it from the other side. It's very strange. And then they start showing pictures of trolls, and they say the best takedowns use humors. So now the article is celebrating people taking down people with trolls. They talk about Tom Woods. I think JW, you were just on the Tom Woods program, and they slam him and they say he doesn't know what he's talking about. Um, let's see. Has Bitcoin reneged on its initial promise to be a global peer-to-peer cash, a currency? Oh, what about the Lightning Network, you morons? Lightning Network good enough? Do proponents of Bitcoin Cash have a point? No. All right. Let's see. Then they go down with the words and getting into attacking. Here we go. This is the guy they're quoting. See, this is the hero of the article. The hero of this article says, he struck me at the time as a sort of alcoholic Taleb wannabe. So again, it's all kind of slurs, personal character, personal attacks. And I forgot about him until he blocked me. And they seem to be suggesting and describing how you control to improve Bitcoin Cash, and that Bitcoin Cash needs more trolls. What is an effective way to deal with rude advocates? So this is from the other side. Oh, they've got a Seinfeld. Why would they be quoting Seinfeld here? Bitcoin will go through its hiccups and may be reinvented how it works. One wonders how Seinfeld could have missed such an obvious contradiction like this when he is so strongly against any suggestion that Bitcoin can be reinvented. Okay. I guess they're just referencing Seinfeld. There doesn't seem to be a person named Seinfeld here. Okay, so that's just like some strange language. But overall, what do you think, JW? We've got the trolls. This is history from the troll side. It's hard to read and understand. What do you think?
I think it's hilarious. It's like classic. So yeah, when Saifedean was on the Tom Woods show, Tom Woods did ask him about Bitcoin Cash, and Saifedean just didn't want to talk about it. He was just like, I don't want to waste any more time on that. And I don't know how. I don't know. I think that I really enjoyed it at the moment. Like, it was one of my favorite moments in any interview. Was he was like, I just really don't want to talk about it. It's such a waste of time. I don't want to talk about it. But I do think that, maybe it didn't work out that well for the audience, because a lot of these people don't know what's going on. And so I think that these guys are poking at that a little bit. But if you're doing a ton of interviews and you get so sick of talking about stupid things. So and it's a tough call, because as these scams run their life cycle, you don't want to feed them. You don't want to bring any more attention to them. And if you're a respectable academic, just saying, it's just not even worth talking about, is actually not a terrible strategy at all. So, I mean, I think that was the motivate, or the sort of the angle that these guys were trying to work at on the article. But what I love is, like, I haven't read the article, of course, because I don't go to bitcoin.com, but it looked like, if they were saying anything about Tom Woods, that's pretty dumb. Because he's really, really popular in their target market. So I'm really curious. Can you scroll down and see if they did that? Because that would be a huge mistake. Like, he is universally loved by libertarians. And it's also this happy guy.
Well, the whole tone of the article is not very good. So they start out and they say, Tom Woods is also something of a golly gee everyman interviewer when it comes to Bitcoin. See, again, because he doesn't understand Bitcoin Cash.
Right.
He appreciates mainstream apprehension to crypto and is an articulate spokesperson for their hesitancy. Mr. Woods and the professor wax all kinds of economics, discussing Bitcoin as something that needs to be understood in order to be used. It doesn't, and scarcity. Nothing is perfectly held as a store of value, but Bitcoin is the best so far, truly scarce. Oh, yes, this is all pretty fair. I mean, this is,
Yeah. It's hard to say. I mean, I'm guessing that if they were insulting there, like, this is semi-illiterate, so I don't know I don't know exactly what, like, I can't tell if they're actually trying to insult Tom Woods or not from reading that. But
this is great. One of the people in the chat is actually reading the article, and they figured out that autocorrect must have corrected Saifedean to Seinfeld, and that's why Seinfeld is mentioned at the end of the article. They're not just like referencing it as a comedy thing. This is great. You can read about it in much more detail from far more competent Austrian economics than Seinfeld.
What idiots. These guys are
Readers should be wary of Seinfeld's conclusions. Seinfeld's thesis in the book is that Bitcoin was immaculately conceived. This is so great.
My gosh. So,
And I was just watching a documentary about Seinfeld yesterday, all behind the show and stuff. But yeah, are George and Elaine going to show up next? And again, if you have an editor, the editor's job is to read the article. So obviously, I skim the article. I'm certainly not the editor here. But if I was described to edit this article, I first heard of Seinfeld a moose in January of this year. So bang, right on the first line, you could have saved this.
Well, they seem to think that this is like a really good joke, right? Like the tone of the article seems to be that one of the ways that we really slam this guy is through humor, and we're going to call him Seinfeld instead of Safedine, which it's just so dumb and juvenile. But yeah, I think we're on the downward trend, right? Like even the price is gone. The company that has been propping up this scam is, Bitmain has just been devastated. So I think probably we can stop talking about Bitcoin Cash now. I think it's a dead thing. And it won't be
What's the deal with Bitcoin Cash? You get all your money and you lose it.
So this is my prediction. Within 5 years, Roger Ver will have to sell Bitcoin.com to somebody that actually has some credibility.
Ooh, that's hopeful. He's more likely to just have a non-website on there. I don't know.
Nope, because at some point somebody's going to have a decent reputation and they're going to offer him money, and he's going to either have a useless asset because it's so well known that he's a retard, or he's going to sell it. And at that point, he's going to sell it. That's how the free market solves these sort of problems.
Well, I solve it by making fun of the author on Twitter. Done and done. But it's time to open up the show for your phone calls. I can see below everyone's been giving us a thumbs up and a share. Thanks so much for your support. We now have 183 live viewers. Pretty good for a Sunday morning. Guys are supposed to be out mowing your lawn or kicking the soccer ball around. Come on. Maybe some of you are. This works outside too. But you can give us a call now on Skype. Oh, there it is. Calling already. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Tony calling from Aruba. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, yeah, we can hear you good. How's it going, Tony? What's on your mind about Bitcoin in Aruba today, or anything else we talked about? Feel free.
Yeah, great. I'm actually running the only node in Aruba.
Nice.
On a Raspberry Pi. So I thought it would be interesting to talk about that a little bit, because you talked about nodes earlier this week, I think.
Is there any way to see the local usage of the node? Are a lot of people in your area accessing it, or is it more just general traffic?
I have no idea. Because the thing is, you talked about nodes, and obviously why it's a good thing to have more nodes. Don't trust, verify, and everything, So I learned about that, and then I thought, well, let's get a Raspberry Pi and try to install the software. And after several weeks, that finally worked out. But before that, I actually I had a node on my laptop, and people don't seem to talk about this a lot, but it's very easy to download the Windows or Mac software and just install it on your regular computer. As easy as installing, Chrome or whatever. And I think this is something that should get a little bit more attention. You don't need to be a hacker to install a Bitcoin node. You don't need to don't have to do it on a Raspberry Pi or some Linux machine. You can just have it on your normal computer if you have the hard drive space.
If you have the hard drive space, right? Because you can run a node with the Bitcoin Core wallet, right? It just has to download the whole blockchain first, right?
It does, yeah. Which is actually a problem on the Raspberry Pi, because it's not about the downloading, but it's also about the checking of all the blocks. And Raspberry Pi is not a very high power machine, so that actually takes a lot of time. Whereas your Windows or computer or Mac, will have it a lot easier. I actually had to sideload the blockchain from my MacBook onto the Raspberry Pi because it couldn't download it by itself or process it by itself.
That's probably the best way to do it. It takes at least a week, maybe even several weeks now to download the blockchain, and I could imagine it hanging on the Raspberry Pi and just sitting there. So
yeah. Well, depending on your connection, I think when I set up the node on my MacBook, I think that's like 3 or 4 months ago. It took, I don't know, a day or two. We don't have a very good internet connection over here, but it's good enough. So yeah, I just wanted to get that out there to everyone. It's easy enough if you have the drive space just to set it up on your computer. You don't have to have it on all the time. But for instance, I connected a wallet, pointed it at my node, so I verify my own transactions right now, and I think that's pretty cool.
that's great. It's a great way to support the network, and it's excellent to verify your own transactions.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to say is it's not actually altruism, although I don't have a lot against altruism. But you support the network, but you're also verifying your own transactions. And of course, if you use a third party, an SPV wallet or whatever, the chances of that going through a malicious node and transactions going wrong or double spending or whatever, those chances are not very large. But it's a principle, right? To verify your own transactions, and also from a privacy perspective. So yeah, I think that's good stuff.
Very much. It's like the conservation idea where you don't want to leave any trace and you want to take care of your own things. I do wonder sometimes, though, if the incentives for running a node are not correct, if there needs to be some kind of monetary reward. Even if while we were printing up all these garbage altcoins, I know they printed up a coin for Tor where you'd get rewarded if you run Tor nodes, Tor nodes, sorry. Maybe you need to get rewarded if you run Bitcoin nodes. I don't know. What do you? We got JW Weatherman with us as well. JW, how about you talk first, and then the caller can tell us what he thinks about the nodes.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessary. I think Lightning creates additional incentive to run your own full Bitcoin node. But even before Lightning, you'd kind of be stupid to do any amount of commerce and not verify the transactions. It's so cheap and so easy to have certainty that you actually have your money. That's the incentive. And if you want to know if you have your money, you can either trust somebody else to tell you that you have your money, or you can spend a few dollars on some hard drives and be able to be certain that you have your money. It's a little harder argument to make for people that are not doing very many transactions, or don't have substantial financial if somebody's only sending you $5 once a month, it's hard to justify probably caring whether you have your money or not. It's like, I kind of care maybe. And that's unfortunate, but I think that problem gets solved as Bitcoin adoption goes up. More and more people will be incentivized to fully verify their own transactions. So I don't think it's a problem that we have to solve. I do think it's good when people run a node. I would say it's good even if you're not doing transactions. I've heard people say, oh, there's no point in running a full node if you're not using it to verify transactions, right? It has to be like somewhat economically active. And I think in a sense that's true. Like if you fire up a bunch of nodes on Amazon Web Services, who cares? On the other hand, I still think that there's some value if you as an individual that cares about Bitcoin, you're not really doing a lot of transactions, you run a full node, because it's just another place where we have a full record of what happened. And I don't know, maybe it's just like I don't know exactly why. I couldn't tell you exactly why that's valuable, but I have a gut feel that there's some value there, right? Just having a copy of that data, let's say, makes me feel a little bit better, even if I'm not doing a lot of Bitcoin transactions. And I guess it's just sort of a hygiene thing, right? Like for me, at some point, I do expect to do a lot of Bitcoin transactions, so I'm prepared to do that. And at least there's not a lot of Bitcoin transactions in general. So at least the few Bitcoin transactions that I do that involve me, I'm doing my job as a smart person and making sure that they're actually happening. And that you have to have a full node to do that.
And what do you think, caller? Is there enough incentive to run a full node?
Yeah, I think I mostly agree with JW, especially for businesses and people who do lots of transactions. I don't do a lot of transactions, but I'm using Bitcoin as a store of value. I want to make sure that that it's safe, and might as well leave the node on instead of turning it on every once in a while and having to download lots of blocks. And while it is on, it's actually doing a job of supporting the network. And I think Andreas Antonopoulos said something else about the benefit of that, and that is, I think, in case of a hard fork or in case miners try to do something, then more nodes run by individuals would help, I think, reject some sort of malicious changes. Not sure exactly, but yeah. That and the fact that it was a fun project just to get the whole thing working, and the Raspberry Pi doesn't take a lot of power, and I don't have bandwidth restrictions that I know of, at least. So for me it's just I guess it's a cool project, and also don't trust verify, experimenting with this new technology and taking responsibility for your own funds.
Well, it definitely helps out the censorship resistance of Bitcoin to have as many nodes as we can and as many full copies of the blockchain as we can. Like JW said, it makes him feel more confident just to know that he has a copy of it. It's kind of like a great ledger. I mean, you could take it with you to another planet. You could unpack your copy. Someone else could unpack their copy. You could work together, connect the two copies, and then you could trade. And you could use Bitcoin, kind of. Maybe not. There's a lot of questions there. Peter Todd, he loves to poke holes in things with science. And he's like, yeah, you couldn't send the transactions back fast enough, so on and so forth. There's a lot of problems. We can't use Bitcoin on other planets. We might have to have a Mars coin from Mars that then synchronizes with Bitcoin. But that's above my pay grade. But thanks so much for your call. And I think it's awesome you're running a full node, even in Aruba. Very cool.
Okay, thanks for having me, Thomas.
And thanks so much.
Keep up the good work, guys.
Thank you. And give us a call anytime. We just want to make sure we keep the call lines open so we can have more calls here. So it's great to get to more people. But we also enjoy it a lot when you call. So you can give us a call now on World Crypto Network, all one word, on Skype. We also have the phone lines at 518-600-1949. While we were talking, there was a little price action in Bitcoin. It stuck ahead over 7,300 for a little while. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey guys, it's me, Tom Base. How's it going? Just calling. I'm out here in the airport. I'm just kidding. Actually, it's me, Crip Loco. It's again.
Crip Loco with the impersonations, really killing it, man. Charlie Lee, Tone Vase. You have depth, man.
I had to call in today, man. First of all, it's Sunday. Second of all, you got JW on there. And I just want to do a retraction really quick because a lot of people are not understanding. I'm not Crypto Loco. I'm Crypt Loco with it ends at the T. So a lot of people have been, looking up the wrong things. I just want to do that retraction really quick. I'm Crypt Loco, like the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt, which is what's my, my plug is. If you want to check out my shit, it's on Tales from the Crypto on SoundCloud. But I like this conversation, and I just wanted to let you guys know that the other thing I was going to mention is that I changed my mind. I've been thinking about it a little bit, and I don't really care about the tech anymore. I just want the price to go up.
At least you're being honest. At least you're being honest.
I was like, whatever, man. Let's tell everybody to invest in crypto now, immediately. Stop what you're doing. Put your coffee down and go out to the BTMs and get rich, son. That's what I'm thinking.
This is terrible.
Myself, let's just all get rich. at the same time. Because technically, if you remember the altcoin days, which, you know, not a lot of people remember because it was like 3 or 4 years ago, there was a time when you go to the IRC chat and it would be like, okay, yeah, we're all going to invest in piggy coin and we're going to get rich, you know, and eventually immediately transfer that money into something else.
Yeah, well, they still have the pump and dump groups. They had that great thing on John Oliver. Somebody had bought like a $5 video for their pump and dump group, and it had that generic Disney free music in the background. It was dun 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 dun. We're going to pump and dump. At 1 o'clock, we'll tell you the name of the coin. At 1:15, the coin will be up 20% in value. At 1:30, we all sell the coin for profit. Dun 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 dun. It was amazing. It was
and
really
you can
amazing.
look at the best part about that is you can go back in time and look at the chart and see that it's like bam down. It's like instantly. It was like you could.
Well, yeah, those Wall Street Journal guys.
If that's not evidence for you know, prosecution, then I don't know what is. But anyway, it's great that you have JW on there. This is great because JW and I had some interactions in Twitter in the past. I was trying to start my own podcast, but I never pulled the trigger because I just can't. I'm trying to really think carefully about exactly how this is going to work because I've tried to not really be vocal. I tried to use impersonations or veils. I use veils to keep myself from the real community because I really do believe there's going to be a point in time where we're going to be all. It's going to be like the X-Men, you know, when the Sentinels.
The Bitcoiners will be hunted,
killed and stuff in the streets.
They thought they would be the kings of the new financial economy, but instead, they were the hunted.
So, I mean, I know JW is really deep on the Austrian economics tip, and of course, there's a lot of people out there. But I think that there's a lot of other considerations. I don't think that we can exist in a modality where Austrian, like, I like this idea that recently came out that I heard about, and this is the topic of what I wanted to call in about, is money as language. And right now what we have is the situation where money is like it's tied to a nation state. And the nation state holds up their flag and they wave their flag and they say, this is our economy or whatever, but it's tied to all these other things. And I mean, don't get me wrong, Dentacoin, I don't know why the fuck they need that. But I'm saying that in terms of there being other currencies that are trying to do different things experimentally, I think it's a good thing. I think it's something to encourage. I don't think it's a one currency to rule them all. And I don't need to read, 40,000 pages of old dead guys to understand that. I think if you travel and if you really, I'm out here in this TJ street, I'm out here on TJ where people are ready to shoot me if I don't make the price go up. So, it's a different thing when you're out here in these streets. And, I'll actually do a little JW side segment, which is, and I would have never said this except on the show because I'm not sure how many people are listening, but I had some kids. I had some little kids test his website, and it was glitching like all kinds of ways. I like the idea. I think the idea is great. I think the idea is amazing, and I was like, it was blowing my mind, the concept of it, because I had these little kids. I have a bunch of little kids in my neighborhood that I try to take under my wing and try to take care of. And I try to teach them math and stuff, and some of them live in San Diego, and they have this Common Core thing, and I'm trying to understand like how it works, and I love this idea because I think it's like the thesis of it is true, but when you go to the website, it starts breaking down, and I was like, but I prefaced it all and said it's not ready yet, it's not ready. Like, this guy is smart, this guy know what he's doing, but anyway, my point is,
So let me just make a couple quick comments on that. Thank you a ton for going out and checking it out, man. I really appreciate it. It's hard to get people to have that much interest in something that's new. Yeah, it sucks you had a bad experience. My guess is that you're probably on Windows and maybe on Internet Explorer, because we've had problems with different browsers. Most of us are using Chrome on a Mac, and when it's early, you tend to find the bugs that are the browsers that you use. So I've been trying to force myself to use Firefox, even though I kind of hate the way the UI is laid out. Anyway, that's all to say, like, yeah, we're totally early, but we've had there's over 100 people playing it right now. And they're probably using Chrome on a Mac.
Sick, dude. We've
got a ton of work to do. So
I can see what you're doing, and it was amazing to me. And the thing with me and the kids in the neighborhood, it's like the same thing like with the other crazy people in the neighborhood that I have to deal with in the clubs and all this other stuff, is they're telling me like, yeah, I don't want Bitcoin. My shit's going fine just with cash. Like, what? Like, give me some cash. I don't want to talk about Bitcoin. I don't need to hire a software engineer to work in my business, And I think that we out here, and when I go out here, or whether I'm in any other country in the world, it's the same story. Nobody wants to hear about it unless it's convenient, unless it works. And Lightning Network might work. There's a lot of other things, but what I'm trying to say is that if money is language, okay, which there's actually a long history of this, because I used to go sit in at Berkeley. I have my own thing going on. I'm just a little Mexican guy that from TJ. I came out, I snuck in, to that Berkeley, to the Berkeley streets. And I was out there, and that's how I met Thomas in the first place in San Francisco. But I was out there and I listened to this guy come out, John Searle, this famous philosopher, one of the most famous American philosophers alive today. And he came out and he held up a dollar bill and he said, "This doesn't mean anything." And he said, you don't need to use the word money to understand what money is useful for, because money has uses. And that's what it's all about. Just like language has uses. So you can use language in multiple ways. And some people in different regions don't need a complex language in certain ways. And so all I'm saying is to think of currency as something that is going to be universal is naive, because there can't be a universal currency. And I don't care what Murray Rothbard said. I don't care what.
Yeah, that's the point. Like, these guys, there's been people that have spent years and years trying to answer that question. You don't care what they said, but you came to a conclusion. What can I do for you? That's all I can say. Like,
I'm not saying that you can do anything for me. What I'm saying is that there is sometimes you can pile.
You're not. Let me finish the thought.
Tons of numbers on one side, and just see that fundamentally there's an imbalance. If money is language,
who said money was language?
That's what it really is, and that's what all of the most current research is on money.
Who's that?
If you look at the philosophy of speech act in John Searle, or like I said, I would consider myself a student of John Searle, Martin Heidegger.
Can I ask you a question, Matt? What do you do for a job? Like, when you get up in the morning, what do you do for to make the world a better place?
So what I do is I try to make my community a better place. I don't have the reach, and I don't have I was a poor young child. I had no family growing up. I have no father. I have no mother, and I have no brothers and sisters. I'm just out here in these streets.
Well, don't be out there. Get a job, man. Do something useful.
So what I do is I wake up. Okay, so let me tell you my day. So I wake up usually at 5 a.m. Okay, I usually wake up at like 5.
Dude, I was not asking for your itinerary. Like, nobody's interested in your daily schedule. What I'm asking is, like, what do you do? Like, what's your job? What's your function?
That's what I'm saying. There isn't an explanation for.
How do you get paid? Are you a bum? Do you live off the labor of other people?
But I get it. What I am is I'm a programmer. I'm a teacher, and I'm an advocate for Bitcoin.
Do you get paid to write software?
I'm out here trying to spread the word of Bitcoin. I've been out here for 4 years trying to get Bitcoin adopted in real merchant.
Well, stop. You're not helping anybody. Go get a job instead.
Merchant adoption is a really hard place to get adoption to. It's a chicken and egg problem on both sides. I mean, I think if I could do anything, I would just get the normal people in the world to buy $10 of Bitcoin. If you can just get a normal person to give it a try, and then especially if you can get them to go on a dollar cost averaging, buying like $10 a week, investing not too much money so they don't have to worry about it, but having a taste of this and having some exposure to it.
Well, what I'm saying is that if I had, what I was trying to tell JW is that I've had situations where, and I know I've told Thomas about this in the past, I've had situations where big investors, just, you know, I don't need to get into the specifics of it because it's going to endanger my situation. But let's just say, okay, you're on the border right there in TJ, okay, and there is a club owner that's taking in tons of money every single day. And there are people that are converting currencies all the time, every single day. Every single day there's little kids on the corner converting pesos into dollars and have to look at the sign to say, what is a peso versus a dollar? I'm out there in those streets making sure that there is a possibility that Bitcoin can get adopted. And actually what's happened is that I have been under intense scrutiny, because what happens is if somebody's like, oh yeah, I'll accept Bitcoin. And then like in my club where I make, you know, tons of money every single day. Okay. So they get the tons of money in, it comes in Bitcoin. And then all of a sudden Bitcoin price fluctuates. And then all of a sudden now I look like they need to murk me, you know, and it's an intense situation to be under. And that's what I don't think that a lot of people are exposed to.
That's because we're too smart to do that. That's a terrible idea, man. Stop doing that.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm not doing it anymore. That's what I mean. Like
also, you can move. You can move somewhere else. So if people in your neighborhood don't like you, it's time to move.
Without getting them to promote the ideas of the tech. I wake up at night and I'm programming all night long. You know, like I'm working on stuff, and I'm in multiple currencies. I'm in Monero. I'm in whatever is interesting to me. I will do it. I will work on it.
Because so here's the thing for all the listeners. This is the kind of person that's going to be into Monero. If this kind of person sounds like somebody that's solving problems and is working hard and seeking out wisdom and making smart choices, then you know, emulate this person. Otherwise, don't, is what I would say.
Yeah, and that's the JW. That this is my fundamental. And I know that you'll understand what I'm about to say right now, which is that there is a fundamental conflict of interest between promoting and this is what I was calling on the show about. There is a fundamental conflict of interest between promoting the price of Bitcoin and promoting knowledge of what we came here for in the first place, which is sound money, which is the technology, which is the politics that was built into the Genesis block. The original point of all of this was to get away from the banks. And we are now in the midst of a confusion about what are we.
Let me play psychologist for a minute and ask you like 3 questions.
Tech doesn't work that fast. It's not gonna move that fast. We're all out there at night. You are, I'm sure.
Can you hear me?
We're all doing stuff.
Hola. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but it's not going to move fast enough for those investors that put in their $500.
There is some delay, but
in a week.
I think it's difficult because basically Wall Street's going to help us and they're going to hurt us. So I don't think it's time to run away from Wall Street or to say that there's somebody that can't use Bitcoin. You can use Bitcoin even if you work at a bank. You can use Bitcoin even if you are a bank. But I think the banks are more likely to make a copy of Bitcoin and to go down that road for however long they need to. But it's an interesting idea about the price versus the tech and which side we're promoting. But thanks so much for your call, Crypt Loco. Keep doing it down there. I think we've gone on a little long. We've got to open up the lines for some other callers, okay?
For sure. The only thing I was going to leave you was on this. I always have to part on the last topic of Satoshi because we're creating a profile of Satoshi. So we have, he's bald, he's going commando. And then my next question is he into this carnivory thing, do you think?
It's tough to say. This carnivory thing is really popular. But I don't see Satoshi as following the trends. I think a balanced diet is probably long-term better for you, more of a middle-of-the-road choice. But we do have a guest judge, JW Weatherman, who can answer the very important question, is Satoshi into carnivory, JW?
Let's see. I can't cuss on this show, right?
You can if you really need to. It's really necessary.
This entire time.
Necessary thing.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, then my answer to that question is fuck you both.
Oh, sounds like he's definitely a meat eater. Sounds like, it's not a very good answer. It's a push. But no, I'm going to say JW thinks he's a meat eater. Yeah. Yeah, not a good answer.
You sound like you're angry about something.
I know.
I'm angry about the question.
Maybe some anger issues. Maybe you and the bald Satoshi who's not wearing any underwear can go get a steak together and solve this problem.
Okay, I do want to say parting words for Crypto Loco. Yeah, man, thanks for calling in.
Loco, by the way.
Yeah, Crypt Loco. Sorry, you sound like a good guy. My advice is just like take care of your family, man. If you're making less than $50,000 a year, find a way to do more than that so that you can take care of your family. And that's the best thing you can do to make the world a better place.
I like the way you turned it into a personal attack. I don't have a family, and I don't make less than $50,000 a year. You just assume that, but
no, I wasn't trying to. I actually was trying not to be a jerk because I was kind of making fun of you earlier. I was saying if. And if you're making good money and this is a hobby thing, then it's totally cool. And that
I'm basically like the Thomas and TJ is what I'm doing. Like I'm not trying to impress anyone. I like to
stay away from those bad clubs and pay off anyone you owe money to, and just be a good upstanding citizen, because we don't want you in any trouble down there, Crypt Loco. So just take care of yourself and be cool with people, right?
I love the community, man. You take care. You keep doing the good work.
Give us a call anytime. And you can call us now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word, or at 518-600-1949. It's good talking to Crypt Loco there. It's not Crypto Loco. Let's get that right. And shout out to Check Your Six in the chat. He's been putting out the jokes, and he's been paying $2 to get his jokes elevated above your jokes. Does this mean his jokes are better than yours? They're certainly more expensive. But JW, you had a fun caller there. You're getting used to the talk show idea. Anyone can call in, right? It could be anyone. Right?
Yeah, no,
he's a good guy. I mean, I'm not saying he's
totally.
He's fired up.
All kinds of like. I think one of the things that's interesting about this is there were so many things that like in 5 minutes that he said, like probably I could spend the next 6 months just like listening to one sentence and then.
Well, and we did have a hit. I looked it up on Google. It was the Scottish philosopher David Hume who said that money is closely related to that of language. But it also looks like Andreas Antonopoulos is out there repeating this. So I think it's probably the Bitcoin philosopher Andreas Antonopoulos spreading the word of this idea that money is language.
Yeah, I think Hayek also talked Nobel Prize winner, Austrian economist, sort of, I would say, because he still had some major breaks with the Austrian school. But he spent a lot of time doing really useful stuff and talking about how it's basically a information sharing network. So there is something interesting going on that.
Well, and JW, we got to one of your favorite topics, which is that of work, right? We got right into that Clerksian idea where they say on Clerks, they're like, all right, it might have been Mallrats where he says, yeah, Hitler did a lot of things, but everybody would have been a lot happier if he just stayed home and did nothing all the time, right? You always want people out doing things, and you're always against people doing nothing. But I gotta stand up for the American slacker here, the one that accidentally invents Velcro, the one who invents the air conditioning because he's hot, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think both of those guys were really hardworking engineers, so you better go back to the drawing board on that one. But yeah, no, I mean, look, if you're a serial killer, take the day off. You'll make the world a better place. Otherwise, get off your fat ass and go solve somebody else's problem.
And I, for one, am demanding more efficient serial killers, harder working. Put your nose to the grindstone. You can do better. Improvement. Yes, but it's the same old issues, the same old thing. But I don't know. What do you think about the extremities of work? What do you think about? Let's talk about just some examples. So there's a guy, and he made a lot of money, and a lot of people know him in this community. He's a good dude, but he talks. Well, maybe he is. Who knows? But he got all into video games, and he spent his life playing video games. I think that's a good idea. But let's take another call. Let's keep this moving here. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Thomas. This is Dave from Youngstown, Ohio. How's it going?
It's going good. How's it going, Dave? What do you think of the show so far? Anywhere you want to start?
The cicadas are chirping, and it's Labor Day weekend. Getting ready for the snow to be flying here real soon. So you know how it is.
Time to move, man. If it's gonna snow, it's time to move.
I used to hate winter so much, but I actually don't mind it so much anymore. I don't mind when it gets super cold. I've got warm clothing, and what I like to say is it gets rid of all the pussies. If I may be so bold as to use such dirty language on your show, you said cussing for a good cause was okay. So.
Oh, it is if it makes the sentence stronger. But if you overuse it and it's every other word, then it makes all your sentences weaker. But I agree with you, that idea of getting rid of the weak people. We used to do that at Burning Man. That was a big part of Burning Man, is that, sir, part of it is a party and it's all the drugs in the desert and all that. But the other part, for me at least, was always this kind of Boy Scout idea of, can I survive in the desert? And that I'm building my own shelter, and I'm building my own structures, and I'm bringing my own food, and I have a group of people to work with. And are we going to live? And there aren't a lot of weak people out at Burning Man. You don't meet a lot of people who don't put the effort in. You meet all the people who do put the effort in. You meet the leaders of all these various communities around here, all hanging out with each other. At least that's what used to be there. Who knows anymore? But go ahead, Dave. More on this.
Yeah. Yeah, that reminds me that I went. It's been a long time now. I think I'm probably in decent shape enough I could still do it. But Philmont Scout Ranch out at in Cimarron, New Mexico, we went out there for 10 days on the trail. And you make little stops along the way, different campsites that have different things, and the resupply and all that. But it was, basically get up in the morning and take a 14-mile hike and eat, and then do another 14 miles to the next thing where you'd have an activity or whatever. And it was no joke.
Yeah, I always wanted to go to Philmont. I never made it out there, but it is such a physical challenge, like you say. And I remember a lot of things in Scouts that I did that I didn't think I could do. And even now, the idea terrifies me. One time we went snow camping, and we built a snow shelter. And by God, it was a different time. We actually slept in that damn thing. They put a boulder in front of the hole. We were inside of a ice structure that we had built. And when we woke up the next morning, our breath had melted the ceiling above us, and we climbed out, and we were alive, and we were fine. But I'm never doing that again. Forget that. No, sir.
Yeah, wow, that's extreme. We never did that. We would always do the Klondike Derby, it was called, and it'd be in like the middle of February, so there'd be a few inches of snow around usually, and that was a cabin camp out. That was actually one of the more luxurious ones we went to.
Cabin. Although that's for people that can't make tents. Come on.
Yeah, we did tent camping the rest of the year, so it wasn't too much luxury, but yeah. I now remember what I was originally thinking about when I'd called in was, have you heard? I've seen it, and I didn't look. I got the email for it. I didn't participate. I think because maybe U.S. people are not allowed to participate. I would have had to go through tour or something. But Varion, the seasteader people out in French Polynesia, put an ICO together, and I kind of get why they did it, because it was hot at the time. They took their time in setting it up, but You know, I don't like to go around shilling shit coins, but I'm wondering if anybody had heard anything about it or had any thoughts about it.
I don't really hear that much about ICOs anymore. I've got pretty good filters in my email. Keeps most of that stuff going to the trash. Looking at their website, I mean, it seems like the standard scrolly website, what they do. I suppose it mainly depends on how much you believe in seasteading or if you believe in this organization that started the seasteading thing, because we're in kind of a new world now where maybe the ICOs are legal. I always thought that these people were doing illegal token sales and that the government would come along and bust everyone who did illegal token sales. And those of us who stood on the sidelines and said, hey, that's an illegal token sale, I'd stay away from that, would be rewarded for following the law. But maybe I made a mistake there, and now illegal token sales are all legal. JW, do you have any thoughts on this seasteading or just the ICO in general?
Yeah, well, let me try doing it this way. Instead of answering your question, I will do what I do in my class, and I'll help you think clearly about this and kind of use breadcrumbs. So, what problem is this thing trying to solve?
I believe they're trying to fund the seastead, basically crowdfund it without having to solicit, you know, large like the Peter Thiels of the world in order to put big money into it.
Okay, so it's basically a property investment opportunity. So, like the if somebody came to you and said, "Hey, I'm going to build this big building in New York, and I want you to buy a piece of it, you know, fund it, and then you'll own part of it." It's essentially what they're doing, but they're going to build something that's off the coast and supposedly in a more economically free situation. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I'm surprised as an ANCAP you're not actually familiar with this.
Oh no, I'm asking you questions. I'm using the Socratic method.
We're doing the Socratic thing. Okay, yeah, I got it. Okay,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so that you've already passed, like you're already in the top 5% of investors in the cryptocurrency space because you have any clue what problem is trying to be solved, and you think that you think it's actually a real problem, and it's not like obviously not a real problem, right? So you already get an A+ in my book, even from this point on. Even though I still think this is probably we'll keep going. Okay, are you an expert in real estate in general, and particularly, do you feel like you have some inside knowledge and some expertise on the value of this project? Like, do you know that this project is more valuable than the market knows because you know something the market doesn't know? Do you have any kind of secret knowledge or unique insight into why this thing
I wouldn't say I have secret knowledge exactly, but I think I think that the whole seasteading idea has a bright future ahead of it. I think that the people behind it are pretty smart, and they're trying to approach it in a very good game theoretic way, and within an existing, like using the existing legal context and just sort of trying to expand those things, like with the C zone being an extension of the idea of the special economic zone, which is something that is like already out there in the world. So I think it's, I think it's viable. I don't know why they, the thing that concerns me is that they're going with this particular model. I don't know if that's,
yeah, I would say that there's a whole nother line of questions about like the ICO, and are you as protected as a normal investor is protected? Are there pros and cons to that? But before we even get there, I would say that that at this point, I can tell you that you should not invest in this. And that's because if you don't know something, the only way to make money as an investor is to have insight, like special knowledge about special expertise in the thing that you're investing in. And that's because, let's say that, I'll give you an example. Let's say that somebody comes to you and they say, hey, listen, I've got this coffee shop, and right now this coffee shop makes $10,000 a month, but there's going to be there's a new office building that's been permitted. They've actually started construction on it, and that is going to increase foot traffic by 700%, and that's going to increase our gross revenue to 30,000 a month, and our profit margin is going to double, let's say. And I want you to buy it. There's no opportunity there. You should not buy that coffee shop. You cannot make any money doing it. And the reason is that the person that's selling that coffee shop already knows
He's asking full value for it.
exactly. He's going to ask you more money based on the fact that there's a new office building going in there. He's not going to sell that thing to you at the $10,000 revenue. He's going to sell that to you at the future expected revenue, right? And so because you don't know anything that he doesn't know, there's no opportunity to profit. It could be a good job, but he's going to sell the coffee shop for what it's worth. You're going to buy it for what it's worth, which means some amount of salary that you're going to get to take either in, you can call it profits, but it's basically you're going to get paid as a manager of this coffee shop, right? You're going to
buy yourself a job.
Right. Now, the other way that this could go down is that you find out that there's an office building going in. Let's say that you have a buddy that works in the permitting office and he says, hey, check it out. We haven't actually approved the permit yet, but we're going to. We're going to approve this permit. This downtown area is about to get totally revitalized. And you are one of the few people that knows that. Well, then you can go to the guy at the coffee shop and you can offer him 20% more than that coffee shop is worth, 30% more, 40% more, and he's going to sell it to you. But you're actually buying it for less than it's worth because you have special knowledge. You have insight that this asset is underappreciated by the market in general. And that's what speculators do. That's what entrepreneurs do. There's an opportunity to profit. If you don't even think that you have specialized knowledge, there is no reason. You're by definition a dumb investor, right? Because you don't even have a viable theory to make money as an investor if you don't think that you might know something that other people don't.
You don't think that this is something that is unknown to a great number of people?
Oh, it could be. I mean, I could invest in that for the right reasons. I could be wrong, but it's more important. Like the reason that I take this approach with people regarding investments is that I care more about you as a person and the wisdom that you have as you walk through life. Because if I just give you a stock tip or something, you might make a few bucks, but that's essentially gambling, right? And I've trained you to be a jackass and just take stock tips and move on that. So over your lifetime, your children, your children's children, I'm not doing you any favors by making you stupider. But if I help you understand the way that the universe works so that you can make your own decisions, then, I've done you a much bigger favor than the specific question that you're asking. So, all right, I'll answer your question now. Just give you my opinion on it, right? So my opinion on seasteading and all of these sort of projects is that they're missing the whole purpose of the cypherpunk movement that brought about Bitcoin and all of the actual useful stuff that we have from public key cryptography, e-commerce, all of the sort of online spaces that we have where we can get some freedom, and Bitcoin especially as sort of the penultimate thing that they were always working on. If you go back and you watch the interview that I did with Timothy C. May, it's on my YouTube channel and also on my podcast if you search for JW Weatherman. Actually, it's also on WCN, in fact. If you search for JW, WCN, Timothy C. May, it should come up. But he spends a lot of time explaining that he didn't want to leave California. He didn't want to go sit on an oil rig in a shitty part of the world that nobody wants to live in because it's economically infeasible to be there and it's just miserable in order to, quote, have freedom. He still wants access to good hospitals and the beach and, nice restaurants. So instead of trying to do this really stupid idea that, again, I mean, and even if you do end up with this little spit of land and you make it valuable, you can't defend it, right? Are you going to be a nuclear power? Because that's pretty much the name of the game. Like if the project was first, we're going to get our hands on nuclear weapons and then we're going to build this little island. All right. I mean, I don't know if it's going to work, but that's viable, right? So in my opinion, it's just a flawed idea. I think the cypherpunk movement is going about this in the right way. We are creating economically free zones online. And once we do that, the bulk of commerce will be online anyway, and we'll be able to spill that freedom out. We'll defund the warfare welfare state from the inside with things like Bitcoin, where they just can't print money in order to go after the next, the next group of innocent people that they want to bomb into oblivion and make us feel like we're more free for it. And as a result, we'll be able to live in Montana or, Southern California and enjoy a good life there instead of having to live off in this shitty place where, your bananas and your tacos are going to cost you 10 times as much because some guy had to get on a freaking boat and let them out. It's so dumb.
Yeah, that makes some sense.
Cool. Yeah, good question though.
It's a romantic notion for me. Not that I plan on going there or necessarily investing in Varion. I just but it's just good to hear a different perspective on it. I hadn't really thought about I guess I was more thinking along the lines of that there's no central plan for freedom, and that there's going to be a lot of people that are maybe they're going down blind alleys, but I think they're at least their heart's in the right place, so.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but honestly, man, when it comes to investing, assume the people that are asking for your money are planning on screwing you over. And it's not always the case, but it's the case so often that should be your default position. And
Sure.
Especially even more if there's an ideological bent to it. So if somebody's saying, hey, I want your money to build a coffee shop and I'm going to sell coffee. All right, they're probably trying to screw you. Try to find out how. Do that 100 times, you'll find one coffee shop that's worth investing in. But 99 other times, they were trying to burn you. But if they say, hey, I'm trying to set up a church, or I'm part of the libertarian movement, or I'm a politician that's running for Congress because I want to end abortion, or anything ideological, it's 1 in 100,000. Maybe 1 in a million of those people are not just trying to take your money and screw you over.
Yeah,
and that's because the fishing for suckers.
They call that.
Yeah, exactly. The fishing for suckers is better with affinity scams than it is with normal investments.
It's also worth noting, if you like the ocean and the sea, Dave, we could get you a boat, or we could also get you a hole in the ground where you can put your money and you can burn it. So both of these seem much better.
I had a guy come to me for a boat loan the other day, and I had to resist the temptation to let him know that the two happiest days in a man's life are the day he buys a boat and the day he sells it.
That's it, man. That's it. It's a hard thing to own. And I can't imagine a seastead, which is basically a boat that never docks. It's always out there floating. And JW had a good point. You don't really have a lot of good weapons out there. You're pretty conquerable by anybody, or you could just sink them for fun from space. I was watching, of course, Jack Ryan, and they've got the drone pilots, and they're just like, yeah, just, right. Oh, check out this guy. He thinks he's all hot shit on his seastead. Watch this. And that's just, he's just a flunky running a drone. He doesn't care. He has to serve demerits for that. He shot down another seasteader. But they're not connected to anybody. They're not juiced in, right? It goes back to my favorite old Vonnegut quote that I talk about all the time, that when Jesus Christ comes down, he says, I'm the Son of God. Don't mess with me. And then people mess with him. It seeks an obvious message. Don't mess with connected people. But what Vonnegut said is, he said, what if Jesus came down, didn't say he was the Son of God, messed up everybody's stuff, and then they hung him, and then the people said, hey, that was my son. What are you doing? Then you have to think everybody's connected, and you have to treat everybody nice. And that's what Vonnegut was, reinventing the religion there. But JW, go ahead. Go ahead, David.
I think that, they do have, and I don't know if it's, I guess they're definitely doing it, and it will remain to be seen if they actually succeed at it. But they do believe that they don't need to defend.
No, they don't, man. I'm telling you, they don't. They believe that
weapons are really weapons of any sort.
But they
small arms like any ship.
Gosh, I hate Hangouts how you can't talk at the same time. Sorry.
Yeah, there is a little bit of a delay too with the phone calls. Just
Oh yeah. No, what I'm trying to communicate here is that the chances that these people believe anything that they're saying is very slim, right? Like if you see a televangelist on TV, the chances that he actually believes in Jesus is very low, because there's so much financial incentive to get on TV and say that you believe in Jesus and ask for money. It would be really weird if he actually believed that, right? Because that means that he outcompeted all the people that didn't believe it, but just wanted the money. And that doesn't tend to be the way that these things work out, right? So the chances that these guys actually believe that they don't need weapons to defend it, I would say right off the bat, it's very slim that these guys are doing anything other than trying to raise money, and they have no intention of doing anything but partying on that money. You throw in the fact that they're doing an ICO, that's like we've now combined like the general shadiness of like politics and religion with the general shadiness of ICOs. So now we're at like 99.99% chance that this is a scam. And then on top of that, you have them denying something like, oh, I don't think this is going to be a problem. That is a pretty obvious problem to everybody. Like this is not, this is well-tread territory.
I don't think it's going to be a problem. They have, they have a justification for it that, like,
yeah. I get that. What I'm saying is like we've pointed out an obvious technical flaw in this plan, right? Like you don't have to be a rocket scientist to go, well, let's see. You can't run a business in California because of the thugs and it's worth fleecing you. But if we go put this thing off the coast of California, they're not going to bother to fleece us. Like, wait, why? Well, because we're so far away that it's not worth the trouble. Okay, well, that means everybody's going to be poor and this is not going to work very well because of shipping costs and other things. But if you ever do get a consensus of wealth there, then somebody's going to take the time to fleece you, right? You're going to finally be worth bothering. So it's sort of an argument for poverty. There is a little bit of like, oh, well, we'll be mobile, but very few of these projects, and I'd be surprised if this one, like nobody's figured out how to do that. And the reason is that if you're going to be mobile, you're basically talking about everybody owns a yacht, right? It might be a shitty square boated yacht, but there's a reason that all the yachts are expensive because saltwater is just devastating on steel. Like if you own a boat, you literally, I think 2 or 3 times a week have to get on scuba gear and rub every inch of its body with a cloth to keep that thing from falling apart. Like
what is things I'm not doing for $100, Alex?
Yeah, exactly. So all I'm saying is like, this is a very obvious technical flaw in their plan. I guarantee you that they do not have a very convincing response to it, that they're deflecting from it. And now we're at a 99.99999% chance that these guys are bad guys and they're just going to take your money. At least that's my analysis.
All right. Well, I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, it seems that they are determined to do something. So
they're going to do something. They're going to do something with that money, but it'll probably be chicks and blow and not slabs of cement.
Oh, I knew we were going to go to hookers and blow before too long. I knew we were getting close.
But I said chicks.
Yeah.
Exotic Polynesian hookers.
Chicks actually means the same thing. The term to pick up a chick actually means to pick up a prostitute. So it's not one of the best words. Women don't really like the word chick, but they don't know the historical reference. I do. So things get different. But thanks again, Dave, for your call. And be sure to give us a call when this C setting thing comes in. If they raise the money,
you got
let us know.
I will call you from my penthouse on the center of the dead that is not defended by nuclear weapons or weapons any larger than an AK-47. How's that?
There it is. Call us from your floating boat with your glass of champagne, and you can tell JW how it all worked out. So,
all right, awesome.
I'll be the guy in the the small light craft coming in to take your stuff.
All right.
All right. Thanks so much for your call, Dave. Give us a call anytime. And I think we definitely got all the seasteading out of our system there. It's interesting. It used to just be an ICO about like a platform, like a world computer or something like that. But now it's getting very specific. You could have a seasteading ICO. It kind of seems like a real commercial product now where, we've got something for everybody. You like, seasteading, we got a seasteading coin for you. Bang. Andy Hoffman likes gold and stuff like that. So they've got a limited currency for him. Bam. It lines up perfectly. People, whatever your idea, whatever your dream is, you want to stand around the fire with your machine gun and eat meat. We've got an ICO for you. So
yep, somebody will sell you that dream.
Yeah. And they'll take your money and they'll run away with it. I watched a little Anthony Bourdain show about Las Vegas, and he was talking to a guy who lived here. And what he said is, in Las Vegas, we take people who don't know how to spend their money. they don't have any idea what to buy next, and we give them something to buy. And I thought it was a great way of looking at the gambling and everything. It was like, really, these people can't think of anything else to spend their money on. I would buy, a sandwich or a Coca-Cola, or maybe something stupid like a toy or a book or more electronics or more video games and movies. But these people, they're like, nah, I can't think of anything to spend it on. I'm going to put it in this slot machine. Maybe I win big money. And then I'm going to, then suddenly they know what to spend it on when they have lots of money, but they don't know when they have smaller amounts. So I thought it was an interesting way of looking at the city. What do you think, JW?
I look at gambling the same way I look at like dumb money investing, because they're synonymous. Like if you don't even think that you have specialized knowledge, you by definition can't make a profit. And if you go into a casino and you actually think you're going to make money, then by definition, like you may make money, but it will be dumb money. It will be in spite of the fact that you were really stupid because you didn't even know the rules of the game.
I really can't stand it. I think it's a tax on people who don't know math.
Exactly.
And I always feel bad when I see them out there. And sure, I've tried, and I know now, craps is pretty decent odds, roulette is decent odds, playing blackjack is decent odds, but everything else in the game is bad odds. So even as much as I don't like gambling, even at decent odds, I really don't like it at bad odds.
Right. I mean, it can be entertaining. Like I'm totally fine with people playing, coin operated video games or whatever, slot machines. If it's just, I'm going to go below $50 and grab a drink and have a good time, enjoying the possibility that I'm going to make money, even though I'm probably not. That's just entertainment. And I think that's
I have a hard time ever believing in the possibility that I'll make money. I'm blown away when I win my money back, when I put $20 out there and I walk with $20. I'm like, that's amazing.
Yeah, because that the probability wasn't there. I mean, in a way, it can be entertaining to make a bad investment, right? And have a drink while you're doing it. I'm totally cool with that, and I think that's fine. But I think if you're playing the slots and you think that you're going to win because your aunt just said something and it reminded you of if it's basically superstition, to me that's the same as giving your money to a guy that manages your mutual fund and tells you that you're going to make money. Like it's by definition just a really flawed thinking. So
I don't know, I've got a good feeling about this.
Yeah, so both of those things are good ways to, like you said, like tax the people that don't understand math. But for me, it's a good way to transfer wealth from people that don't understand investing to people that do understand investing.
And I think it's about time to transfer the beginning of this show to the end of this show. So JW, where can people learn more about you and what you're doing?
Let's see. You can check me out on Twitter at JWWeatherman_. I recently changed my Twitter handle because Weatherman IM didn't really work and it looked like Weatherman Lamb. So now it's JWWeatherman_. So follow me on Twitter, and actually you can also check me out on YouTube if you search for JW Weatherman Bitcoin, or you can find my podcast searching on pretty much any podcast catcher for JW Weatherman Bitcoin.
_ that's the hardest character to type on the keyboard. It's even harder than dash. Come on.
Yeah, no, but it's allowed on Twitter. I was surprised. And when you autocomplete, it doesn't matter, right? You start typing JW.
Yeah. The autocomplete is the main key. That's what works. Because a lot of people, you'll start typing their name and it doesn't come out, or they have their username changed to some kind of vanity joke name or something, and it doesn't come out when you type their name either. It can be bad. But good identifier. It's just good to have the simple identifier. So we just want to go towards the end of the show. Thank everyone for donating to our Tallycoin fundraiser, where we're now 0.06% of our goal towards $1 million. We will hold or continue getting donations until we reach our goal for this account. For other accounts, if you want to donate to more Workaday World Crypto Network accounts, we've also got a Bitcoin address and all of the altcoins accepted by Trezor. Over at patreon.com/WCN, you can support us for as little as $2 a month. You can subscribe with whatever you want at Patreon. It just goes on your credit card, a couple of bucks a month. It's like subscribing to a magazine. It's a pretty good deal. Or you can subscribe at patreon.com/madbitcoins, where 75 patrons are hanging in even through the difficult straits of the first of the month when you actually have to pay the patrons. 75 of you are hanging in there, keeping your credit cards updated on patreon.com. So thanks again for watching. We'll be back again tomorrow morning. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and a share. Subscribe down below. And I'm going to watch some more Jack Ryan. I don't know if Weatherman's going to watch some more Jack Ryan, but I'm getting close to the end. And it's been fun. It's a light little show. I'm not saying it's, you know, the Magna Carta or anything great or anything, but it's a fun little distraction. So, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. Do something good on Sunday. Go outside, read a book, go for a walk. Don't just stare at the charts all day. Until next time, bye-bye.